Of housing in Connecticut is at a critical stage, according to a new report from an advocacy group called Partnership for Strong Communities. It says about 50% of renters spend more than 30% of their income on housing. Many minority groups, they say, are spending 50%. So will this new housing bill that was signed by the governor make a difference?
We have a mismatch of our housing stock, how many homes we have, and the number of households who need homes. And so we're really at a critical point, like many states in the country.
I'm also a believer in supply and demand. Make it easier to build, faster to build, less expensive to build.
So the governor says he has ideas for the next legislative session. So do affordable housing advocates. We'll see what actually makes it to the floor in the short session, which starts on February 4th. Representative Steve Weir joins me now as a Republican on the Housing Committee. He's from Hebron, small business owner, wasn't in a construction business, has home heating oil now. Welcome back. Good to see you, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So you know housing intimately. We just heard that report says more people are spending over 30% of their income. The governor now, as a solution, or at least to try to help the situation, is talking about rent caps. Meaning, and he would apply it specifically to these big companies that come from out of New York City and they try to buy properties here. He said it was out-of-state landlords. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think the governor, I think he's way off base in terms of, or I think he ought to be more cautious about considering the tone that we're sending. So in one case, we're trying to, with the new housing bill, encourage development. Not all that development is going to be coming from companies within the state. So in every other facet of our economy, we look for out-of-state investment. And here he's looking to implement a policy that would really discourage other companies from coming in from out of state to invest in Connecticut.
So you would believe that if you were getting a capital company that's going to come in and build 200 units somewhere, they're managing it and collecting the rent is different than building something. So, well,
I mean, currently some of the largest landlords and housing providers in the state are they have a nexus or you know, they're based out of state operating in Connecticut.
Right.
So I mean, I think there's a big difference between an out of state landlord who's disconnected, who's just collecting the rent, you know, some might refer to those as slumlords, versus the message of saying there are some of the highest quality housing that we have in the state, thousands of units owned by companies from out of Connecticut who are taking care of their tenants, doing the right by their tenants, providing quality housing. And the governor seems to, with his statement, again, it was an off-the-cuff statement,
right,
that seems to me to be a blanket statement which would discourage exactly the quality types of landlords we want coming into the state.
And we know there's evidence of both in downtown Hartford specifically.
Sure.
There are buildings that have been neglected literally for decades, rats, mold, you know, ceilings coming down. Then you have some of the towers that were once office towers and they're getting repurposed into high-end condominiums.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some sort of nuance there, I guess you would think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, we want policies that are going to encourage investment. And if that means, if there's a lot of risk for a landlord or somebody coming in to invest, they're not going to, and you're going to be left with the, you know, you're going to be left with the bottom dwellers. Right. Those are the people who are going to take that risk because they have less to lose.
Now, the governor is concerned, and others are concerned about some of these bigger companies coming in. They're going to buy up all the housing stock, which ends up driving up the price. And as you know, we were talking before we went on, if you have a kid in college who's getting out with $500,000 in college debt, there are no starter homes available in Connecticut. They're very few and far between. How do we try to tackle that? Whether it's a senior citizen on a fixed income who's just getting Social Security, they want to stay in their home, or because the taxes keep going up, or a college kid who wants to get a start in their career and have a place to live.
Yeah, certainly, as I said before, I think we want to encourage policies that will encourage towns and cities to, or people to come invest, developers to come in and build on that land. But I think what's not being mentioned in that argument is the cost of regulations, you know, the property taxes, you touched on that, building permits, just the amount of red tape you have to go to get something developed nowadays. Also, we're contending with high energy costs, so our young people, our senior citizens on a fixed income, we have the second highest energy costs in the continental United States behind California. These are things that we could do in Connecticut to improve you know, affordability across the spectrum.
Now, interestingly enough, President Trump sort of weighed in on this topic as well. He thought the big investment companies like BlackRock and others in New York City could be buying up big blocks of houses, controlling the housing stock and driving up the price. He wants to kind of talk about, let's reconfigure that. Kind of odd for a Republican, because the big business is usually, you know, what a standard Republican would support.
Sure.
How do you feel about something like that? stopping the investment companies from doing it?
I guess as it relates to Connecticut, sitting on the Housing Committee, I don't recall seeing a bill come through or a concern come through on that matter. So I would say we should probably keep an eye on it. I'm really hesitant to just say a blanket, because President Trump, because he mentioned it, that we should automatically jump on board. I think that's something that if it is an issue, we could look into that in Connecticut as to how to tackle that. But so far, we've not seen that issue come through as a raised bill.
So address it as it comes.
That would be my. We should be proceeding cautiously up there in Hartford.
So moving forward, what do you think is the optimal step or steps to take? Maybe not get done in this short session, but how
Sure.
can we move in a positive direction to try to ease some of the housing needs?
Well, I think, again, easing regulations, if you look at the cost to build a house today versus when I've built 3 houses in my lifetime, the cost to build when we first did in 2000 was a fraction of what it is today. And that property taxes, that is the land cost, the labor. We've gone up in the minimum wage, which drives everything else up. I mean, I think all those things need to be considered. Insurance, taxes, electricity costs. These are all things that contribute to higher costs in every part of our daily lives.
It'll be interesting to see how it's going to be addressed coming up in February.
Yes.
Representative, good
Thank
to
you,
see
Mike.
Appreciate